because when you looked from the Star Redoubt down on it, it looked like a horseshoe. It really, you can see it today. You can walk all of Mount Independence from the visitor center. Now, this construction of Mount Independence, it was matched by what was going on over on the Ticonderoga side there. The Pennsylvanians, they rebuilt what the French had had in 1758, renamed it Liberty Hill. And that's still standing to this very day. All of this construction on land was matched on the water. So imagine 25 miles upstream, what's now Whitehall, what was called Skenesboro then, you had the construction of the American fleet. Some of these boats were captured, but most of them were built right there, and it was just the hulls. These hulls, they would row them all the way down the South Bay and then pull up right into this bay here, and they had a giant crane up on top of that cliff that would lower the masts down in there. In fact, if you hike Mount Independence, you can still see the stone footings for where that crane was. It's right there. Now, the masts were put in here on Mount Independence, but then everything else they needed was put in below Fort Ticonderoga. Now, the Americans, even though they gave every high spot, they gave it a patriotic name, their name for Fort Ticonderoga was the Old French Fort. Because anything that was old and had been French, they just went ahead and called it that. And then on the slope down below that, all the warehouses that they built, they nicknamed the Old French Town, even though, again, no one had lived there. But it was from that spot that they fitted out these ships with everything they needed. Everything from ballast, cannons, cannon carriages, sails, nets, fish hooks, and even the crews. Now imagine you're up in the middle of upstate New York, and at that time the independent state of Vermont. There's no sailors around. So the crews were actually soldiers. And in August of 1776, there's a draft. That is to say, orders go out for 50 men from every regiment. You're going to march on over to the fort, and there you're going to head down to the docks and get on your boat. And you got to learn how to row and sail and fire a cannon on the deck of a boat that might well be pitching back and forth. Thankfully, you have this really patient instructor called Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold, he had been a ship's captain operating out of New Haven, Connecticut. Now he's this place a brigadier general. He's also your commodore, and he's going to teach you how to sail your boat together. And all told, the guy does a pretty good job. I wouldn't cross him, but he teaches them how to sail together. You got to be a little bit apart from one another, so the wind that your sail blocks doesn't stop the guy ahead of you. There's lots of little subtleties like that. By the end of August, he takes his fleet all the way up to Crown Point, where they had more open water to sail. And then he decides that the best place to stop the British, because they're building a fleet of their own, is going to be on the west side of Valcour Island. And he decides this because he knows that the British are building some big ships. These big ships, they're going to need the wind out of the north to drive them south. If they need the wind out of the north, they're going to sail past Valcour Island and then have to sail into the wind if he's in the bay. So with him in that really good spot, on October 11, 1776, he fights it out with the British fleet and manages to hold his own for 8 hours of fighting. Then, under the cover of a moonless night, he escapes out of Valcour Bay. The British wake up in the morning, realize he's gone, and they'll chase the fleet for the next 2 days. Now, out of the original 15, only 4 survive. The rest are either captured, scuttled, or sank. But those crews that sail back or march back, they're greeted as the heroes of Valcour Bay because they bought time. Time for all of these earthworks to be installed. Time for 13,000 American soldiers to be entrenched here. In fact, the position's so good that when the British finally arrive on October 28th, they just turn right around. There's no way they can get past it. Now, to make good on that for another campaign season, the Continental Congress said, all right, we're going to block the British with a bridge. Now, can you guys see the end of the cliff there in the Ticonderoga Peninsula, or the west side? Over on the east side, you're starting to see the beach off of the north end of Mount Independence. Okay. Well, imagine over the winter of 1776 into 1777, it's so cold. I mean, it's a normal winter, but it's